All set? All right, it being 7 o'clock, I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order. First, we have the public hearing that was started back on July 8th that we recessed, and I will entertain a motion to reconvene the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. So we had met 2 weeks ago. We heard a lot of residents speak on both on behalf of the proposed ATV trail and against it. And we had reached out to our legal counsel for an opinion. And Dean, did you have anything new to present, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just want to make one final point here. Last time we were here, we heard a lot of concerns about the road and the conditions and the traffic and the speeding and the garbage and all those things. And I just want to make a point here is that, you know, that really had nothing to do with the ATVs that ride in the park or ride on trail systems, okay? And one of the things that we want to say to the board is that, you know, we really want to have the opportunity to prove that we can be good stewards of that road and all the way into town, right? We're gonna ride it with our trail patrol on, and we're gonna make sure we see trash, we pick it up as good stewards anyways. And we're hoping that we'll help control some of that speeding and garbage throwing and things like that out, and we can make it a better and safer place. And we would like the opportunity to have that to prove ourselves right. So, and we appreciate the board and your consideration, and thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody from the board have any other concerns on this or questions?
One thing that I had come up with as an idea, if we were to do this, I'm not opposed to adding additional trails. I don't necessarily know if that road is the perfect place to have a no trail, but what I would like to see is a no wake zone. In other words, if, you know, an ATV is driving and there's visibly a house that they can see, that they drive no more than 5 miles an hour. That would eliminate the possibility of an accident and also eliminate a lot of the dust. That's something that I would like to see. I know for a fact that there are currently ATVs, whether they're allowed to or not, currently driving up on that road. I drove up there a couple weeks ago, and there's about 30 houses that are visibly seen in a 4-mile stretch. So a good portion of that road is, you can drive for a good long stretch with no houses on either side. So that would be, you know, if I were to vote for it, that would be a compromise that I would like to see, is having, you know, a no wake zone, strictly enforced, no more than, say, 5, maybe 10 miles an hour at the most.
No, that's definitely a good point.
Yep.
Does anybody else from the board have anything else?
Well, I just wanted to, so it's in the record, when we had met on the 8th, there was a lot of talk about revenue coming into town, and talking to board members and talking to community members. It was hard to get a number on that. No one could come up with, you know, speculations on revenue, but no one could come up with our numbers. But numbers that we did come up with, and they're here, if anyone would like to see them, because our chief said that he had said that he would have to put on another patrolman, and I believe it would be, excuse me, about almost $68,000 a year. Now, that you'd only really could only put about 50% of that in, because I think, Dean, you had told me it was about a 6-month period, correct?
Yeah, it's from May 23rd to the first snow.
Right.
Yeah, at least absolute by December 15th.
Right. So, I mean, you really couldn't put that whole number attach it to this program, just for the simple reason is you're only going to be using it for those months. And we're able to talk to the road agent and get a little bit more information on his concerns. I know that he had spoke, not in depth at all. One thing that you had mentioned in that you were able to, or your committee or your group was able to get some grants to help with calcium chloride.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are some concerns on, and see, here's a problem, and you know this as well as anyone. It's hard to put numbers on anything that is speculative. We don't even know the number of vehicles. You had mentioned one time that you didn't think it was going to be that great, but we don't know that. So it's hard to say, is it going to be 5 a day or is it going to be 50 a day?
Yeah, true.
You know, so it was hard to ask road agent to say, hey, how much damage is going to be, on the road? We don't know that.
It's speculative.
Right.
Neither does the road agent or the chief know what is really going to happen, right?
Right, and we're
So,
only
we don't know
relying
that.
on their, I guess, their
Educated experience, absolutely right, yeah.
on that. So that was just a couple of things I wanted. I don't think you were aware of these numbers before because we just got them. So
Yeah.
I just want to let you know.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Jack. And again, we don't know if there's going to be a need for another police officer, and we don't know if there's going to be more work to be done by the road agent. We don't know that, right? We know that the road is always in need of work,
Yep.
just from the vehicles that go even faster, right? Again, we appreciate that, absolutely. And I'm a taxpayer myself, not only here in town, but I don't live on that road, but I have property on that road as
Right.
well, right? And I drive that. So I understand that, but again, we appreciate that. And I think that us being there and policing it as well, as an organization, let alone the police in Fish and Game, we can probably bring some order to the whole thing. So,
Nothing else from the board? All right, briefly, if anybody from the public has anything that wasn't already stated at the last meeting? Yep, come on up. Yeah, and you can come right up after him.
I just asked if you were aware of the letter that the chief of police of Hinsdale posted on Facebook about a trailhead being closed down, the reasons why it was closed down, and what it cost him in manpower. And the state Fish and Game had their input on that too. It was on Facebook. I don't know if you guys...
I saw it.
Okay.
I heard about it, yeah.
I don't do the Facebook, so
I can speak to that. So our president lives right down the road from there. That is a private property, illegal ATV riding, okay? So that has nothing to do with legal park riding. That was an illegal operation over there. That was that got out of hand. And what happened is that people would come from all around and park illegally on the roads and on people's lawns and unload. And it also became a dumping ground. Like Mr. Gussman had said years ago, they used to dump trash up on the parking lot, and places like that, up on the north end. And that's exactly what happened. So the police were constantly getting called by the residents of that area to come and help manage it. So just like the residents of the road call the town, the road agents and the police now for the stuff that goes on now on this road. So that was what that was. It had nothing to do with, it was not any authorized trail system over in Hinsdale. Currently, the only trails that this club has is in Pisgah Park. The only place.
The reason I'm speaking is because I don't understand, I haven't heard anyone mention Jantee Road. You know, coming out of the park, the first road that goes down to Spofford, to Westport Road is Jantee Road. And if that was used, there would be no traffic going down Spofford Road to upset anybody. There's very few houses on Jantee Road. It connects directly to Westport Road. And that would just eliminate all this, you know? And we live next to Mr. Gusman, which is about at the northern edge of residences. And that wouldn't affect any of us if the club was using Jantee Road instead of Old Spofford Road. It wouldn't affect the people down the road. It wouldn't affect the road itself. There'd be no issues about trash or how people drive. There's almost no, there was what, 1 or 2 houses maybe on Jantee Road. And that's closer to the park than any of Old Spofford Road. You know, they could just cut right down there.
Yep.
It seems to me that would be a logical alternative and one that should work for everybody. That's all I've got to say about it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, last, 2 weeks ago, at the end of before we recessed the public hearing, I had mentioned that, and I still firmly do believe that we should be able to, come with a way to get some trails that do get people access to, stores to get food, water, gas, stuff like that. And I did mention at that meeting that if this wasn't the preferred route, that maybe as a joint effort, we could come up with a good route, or a way to do it. I mean, this was the first route that was presented, so this is the one we're looking at. Anybody else from the public?
I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, so I'm not sure if this was brought up then or not, but it seems like, I think it's a great idea to try to bring new business into town, but for people off of the park, it would seem like the most logical way to get them into town would be in the most direct route. It's a 4.5 mile trail down Old Spofford Road, but it's 3 miles directly down into town. And it seems like that's a safer route that would be easier for them to take. That would be the best way for them to get into town, buy what their drinks and the food they want to buy, and then get back to the park, rather than taking the more circuitous and more dangerous route, which would then turn Old Spofford Road effectively into a park trail that the city has to maintain. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Nobody else from the board has any other questions on this? All right. I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Does anybody have a motion they'd like to make on this?
I don't think anyone would like to have a motion, because I think 2 weeks ago, we heard from both sides that every one of them said to this board that they wouldn't want to be in these seats right now because of these decisions. No matter what decision you make, either for or against, it's not going to be a very popular decision. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to see our senator here tonight, because I do have a few questions for him after this public hearing. And hopefully we'll get right to him after, so some of the
Right.
people that are here are able to hear his answers to, or hopefully answers to the questions. I'm 100% behind this club, for the simple reason is because I've talked to Dean before on these clubs, and snowmobile club he's been involved in, and one thing that I really think is very important is that how it teaches the children how to ride respectfully, not only on their own property but others, and safety, the safety of on the road or even crossing the roads, and I think that's very important, and that's why I like these clubs. That being said, I don't think, Dean, this is the right suit for coming down using these roads, and that will be my motion to deny this for a couple of reasons. One is talking to the police chief, talking to the road agent, listening to the residents on the road. But I am gonna be pushing for, another solution for this to get them able to get downtown. Just my motion would be to deny this.
I'll second that motion. And I agree with Jack wholeheartedly. Like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I feel strongly that the whole board would probably agree with me that we would have no problem endorsing a letter to help petition the state to help open up some more trails or possibly open up the rail trails to make a safer route down. But we're also not shutting out the idea of another route that doesn't involve those. I think with a lot of, it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of trial and error. But I think eventually we should be able to come to a good solution to get the ATVs down to Coolix and Sunoco and Gary's Power Equipment and all these places downtown that have the supplies they could use.
Well, this is a problem, and once again, I'm so glad that the Senate is here to hear this. Here's a group of men and women that have taken their time, volunteered their time, to try to do something that's positive. And it just doesn't work out in this case. I don't know how many hours, Dean, you have involved in the club to try to, sending out registered letters, the expense, talking to residents. You have hours, I'm sure, hours on top of hours. And to try a different route that's on a town road, you'll be going through the same thing, and we'll probably hear from people, we talked about Old Chesterfield Road, well, we'd hear from those residents. And this is why I'd like to have you stick around, someone from your club, please, after this vote, so we could talk to the senator on some possible direct routes. So please stay by after the vote, if you would, please.
And the one last thing I'd like to add before I call for the vote is to piggyback on what Jack was saying. I've known Dean a long time. I've known the Snowmobile Club a long time, and I only trust that the ATV Club is run in the same fashion as the Snowmobile Club was, and they've always done excellent work with maintaining all their trails that they use, as far as grooming them, trimming them, cleaning them, policing them. I've never heard a problem with any of their trails. So I feel fully confident in working with them in the future. But any other discussion on that? All those in favor of denying the application?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Dean, we definitely thank you for trying.
May I say something?
Sure.
Absolutely.
We absolutely want to thank the board for considering this and bringing this forth. And we look forward to your suggestions on what a possible another route might be. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Would you like to get Jay up now?
Yeah. Moving on with the selectmen meeting, we will let Senator Khan have the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Nice to see you. It's been a custom of mine to, after every legislative session, to try to get all the towns, 15 towns in Senate District 10 that I represent. So I'm glad to be here. It sounds like there might be some questions that I'm certainly I learn, not just here to deliver information, but also to receive, and that's the purpose. So I will say that a person that I invited to your meeting tonight is Michael Kowalczyk. Michael is, I met because, Michael, if you just wave. And Michael has been working to expand rail trail development in the Monadnock and particularly Cheshire County area. He lives in Swansea. He's worked with Keene and Swansea on trail development, and I know that one of those paths is from Winchester to Brattleboro. In the future, I'll be continuing to work with Michael because I think he's got some really good ideas, and he's really studied what is possible in this region. That being said, I'll transition very quickly, maybe take 7-8 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You may have just
You're good.
rein me in, Chairman. This legislative session obviously was interrupted by the COVID crisis. We needed to suspend our hearings as of March 12th, suspend session. But up until that time, there were about 1,000 bills before the House and the Senate. And we could not move all of those forward. I mean, there were about 450 that had passed one chamber or the other by that date. I got to give a lot of credit to Senate leadership, Donna Soucy, Senate President, and her staff for sticking with the process, because those are people's issues. These are matters that needed to be dealt with in this session, not just completely abandoned, because we had made a lot of progress. There were hearings on all of these bills. So what is now in front of the governor, and you're starting to read headlines about things that he's signing or vetoing, is 33 bills. And in those bills, there are some bills that were controversial, did not have bipartisan votes in either the House or Senate, and so they're isolated. But about half of those 33 are omnibus bills grouped together, where in every instance those bills had unanimous support in their committees. I'll give you an example. I chair the Education and Workforce Development Committee. There are in the Education Omnibus Bill, House Bill 1558, 13 different bills. They deal with probation and suspension, something that we hadn't updated to make sure that students are continuing to get an education despite the fact that they may not be in school. That there are appeal processes, that these disciplines are age appropriate, because what a 5-year-old does in school that might lead to a mandatory probation or suspension is not of the same degree as what an older student might do. So discipline ought to be age appropriate, not just driven by a fixed rule. Brain injury recovery. We know that students recover from that at different rates, and so how do you help a student through education when they've had a concussion and need to work through it? So there's legislation in that manner. Sexual assault prevention education as a mandatory part of a training for all school employees and volunteers is a part of the omnibus bill. There are things that allow school districts to build reserves at a higher rate than they've been able to. And given all the unpredictable kinds of things happening to school budgets, whether that's by town desire or because of state or crisis situations, towns need the ability to build some reserves so that they can respond to these crises. And there are all sorts of conditions that if you access those reserves, there's got to be a public notice, public hearing, and public reporting and transparency to any expenditure out of those funds. And then also something that would allow, and are you a SB2 town or a town meeting town?
SB2.
SB2, because I know that from your school district meetings. well, then you know that your bond referendums are at 60% passing. And, but if you're in a town meeting, it's still 2/3. It was never changed. So there was something in there for that too. There are things in there that make the graduate retention incentive partnership something that I encouraged and support. I wrote it 2 years ago. It's signed, it became law 2 years ago, but it needed a small fix. So that's in that bill, as are enterprise revitalization zones, which you can designate as a community, a fix so that there can be more businesses signing up for that, as there are more businesses signing up for graduate retention incentive partnerships. So I give that as an example of some of the 13 bills that were in this one bill that's now before the governor for his signature. There's a lot of other good legislation that I'm really proud that I had an opportunity to sponsor. Let me hit some of the other spots. You know, I spend a lot of time on healthcare. Telemedicine, I wrote the bill with 3 other legislators, 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat. It establishes parity payments for telemedicine consults, as well as what would be reimbursed to a healthcare provider for an in-office visit. Why is that important? Because we're never going to move the needle on telemedicine until the rates are equal. Why create disincentives for something that is more timely and more convenient and can help prevent much more costly needs for care if we can develop that mechanism? There's a study committee required in the telemedicine bill that over the next 4 years, as we might develop new payment codes, might find new technology that can reduce costs, and over that 4-year period, maybe we will see healthcare rates start to go down for the use of telemedicine if the evidence is there. And right now, we need to build up the evidence, because right now, before the crisis, it was only 1%, less than 1% of all healthcare delivery. During the crisis, mental health care, 80% of it was being delivered through telemedicine, either voice or video. We've prohibited in the past the use of voice consults. So this is now permitted for 20 different healthcare practices in the state, licensed practitioners. So there's a summary of I'm very proud that the governor signed it yesterday. It's now law. It'll go into effect in 60 days. I also spend time on broadband. The governor signed a broadband bill that had 3 different bills in it today. It allows you more flexibility as a town to map your own unserved areas, and that any provider who fails to provide you with mapping in an appropriate time period, you can overlay on that provider's there is no service. If you don't know that there are served customers and they can't provide you with the evidence of how they're served to meet the definition of service in the state, which is 25 megabytes down and 3 megabytes up, if a provider can't provide you evidence of the addresses to which that's provided, you can overlay on those territories.
What's the name of that law?
That is House Bill 1111.
Easy one to remember.
Thank you. It also allows for cooperative districts. So in the same way that you could form a district for water and sewer, it allows for a telecommunications cooperative to be developed. So if Swansea and Winchester wanted to go together because there was logic in how to serve the unserved portions of both communities, maybe they abut, then that would be something to think about. It may not work for everybody, but a Hinsdale-Nelson really makes sense, because you got 2 towns that together maybe have 2,000 people. And then I spend time on long-term care and work with Applewood Nursing Home in Gale as an example. But as you know from her staffing situations, she has brought nursing assistance training into her facility, but she can't get reimbursed from Medicaid for doing so. And I proposed, and it's now law, that that's part of our Medicaid reimbursement schedule in the state. So that applies to Maplewood in the same manner that it would apply to Applewood. So other things that are in there, you know about voting from home or absentee balloting, how you want to phrase it, but I believe that the governor will sign, and I think he has signed, House Bill 1266. There was a broader election law reform bill that he did veto. I think that's unfortunate because it would have allowed for online voter registration, for updated compare lists to other states with better technology, and it would have extended absentee balloting without reason, without excuse, for all elections, including your municipal elections, or town elections. But that was vetoed, and what is in place is something that's conditional for 2020 and 2021. So it will apply for your town elections in 2021. And it will allow for, no, actually that's a different act, but it will, I think you can, it's a different bill than 1266. As you know, though, you can do absentee balloting, one request for both ballots, primary and general election, you can mark your voter registration list for any absentee ballot that's been received prior to the date. You can examine those within 5 days of the voting period, and there are other things that don't let me get stuck there. But I think that the Secretary of State and Dave Scanlon is meeting with all town clerks, and I'm sure that you're coming up to speed with all the things you got to do, because you probably have requests for absentee ballots that are already sitting with the clerk.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. An independent redistricting commission. The governor vetoed this 2 years ago. I think we have answered all the questions on this in this bill. No party will name a person on the 15-member commission. They'll be named by the other party. So 5 people, 5 Democrats would be named by the Republicans. 5 Republicans would be named by Democrats. And 5 independents would be named by mutual consent. That's about as independent as one could dream up, and I really hope that this becomes law. A dental benefit for Medicaid. That is almost entirely, it's 90% reimbursable by the federal government. We haven't put it into the Medicaid plan. It's in there for kids, but that's a different program. This will, effective April 2021, build that into the Medicaid insurance policies of the state. Also, that if maternity benefits are being offered by an insurer, that they need to include abortion services in that. And drug pricing, that insulin, which had been the highest cost in the nation, the governor said the other day will now be the lowest cost. I take a lot of pride in my colleagues who offered this legislation, but it controls insulin pricing. It makes sure that EpiPens are a part of every insurance policy in the state. You can't eliminate that from your drug formulary, and it allows for bidding that will allow countries from outside of the U.S. to bid for those products coming in and read Canada into that. Or it could be other European countries that manufacture drugs like for COVID. But it allows for bidding low, and hopefully this will get to low price lower priced health care in the state. I give you those as some of the places as to why this legislative session was so important. We needed to get these to the governor's desk, and I'm really pleased that we were able to complete as much work as we did. And glad to answer any specific questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Senator, sorry.
It's okay. If I can call you Chad.
Yeah.
So,
You only sat in for a few moments here. Mr. Beeman and his club that he represents of ATV riders was asking the town to provide access on town-owned road from the state park so they could come downtown for services that are available to them. And you heard a denial, and one thing that we kept on thinking about is Dean had told us that there were two parking areas that are what you consider legal parking areas. Is that correct?
For the state?
Yeah.
The state park only has two parking.
Two, okay.
areas for access to ATVs.
Right.
Everything is there.
Okay. And one of those is down here in Ashwilla. Within a stone throw of the old railroad beds. They are we have the largest state park right here in our backyard. They're able to use a very small portion of it, even though they pay a very large fee to be able to use it in their registrations. I would like to see you, as our representative, as a senator, either sponsor or co-sponsor a bill that one would open up the state park for some more trails to give them more of an area to ride. And two is to be able to use these rails, these old rail beds, in a safe manner. Now, I'm glad, Mike, you came in tonight, because the first question you have in your mind, all right, well, originally when they were bought back with federal money, it was no wheeled vehicles. It was for horseback riding, walking, bicycles. And then we were able to put the snowmobiles, were able to petition the state and were able to get the use of them. And one reason is because of the snowpack and less damage on the contact of the earth. But one thing I was thinking of, there's also still many people, Mike, and you might be able to answer this. Because I was thinking, all right, there's still going to be horseback riding, there's still going to be people jogging and bicycles, and how would that interact with, if we're able to put ATVs on it, but during the wintertime, you have snowmobiles on it, which are legal, but you have people cross-country skiing, you have people snowshoeing, you have people just hiking. So you have that same interaction with a motorized vehicle during the wintertime, and I think that you probably could get the same thing during the summer through education. And
There's speed limits.
right, there's speed limit. So we haven't had a large concern with that, have we, with the snowmobiles and people using it on foot or on skis, if you would? Well, I asked him to respond, please.
I see Mike has an opinion on this, and let's.
Yeah, don't run off.
If we're gonna, I hear the question, but maybe he's got more insight. Do you want to address that?
Yeah.
Just tell you what I know.
Sure.
So again, my name is Mike Kowalczyk. I live in the town of Swansea. I'm leading a group called the Monadnock Regional Rail Trail Collaborative. This started about 6 or 8 months ago. And our goal is to restore and maintain the rail trails through the region. The Cheshire Trail from the New Hampshire-Mass state line up to the New Hampshire-Vermont state line, the Ashwelot Trail from Keene down into South Hinsdale, and then the Fort Hill Trail from there up to Brattleboro. And restoration means to improve them, upgrade them, so that they're usable by bikes, runners, walkers, that's those types of folks of all ages, okay? And the snowmobile clubs, you know, do lots of work on the trails today. They do lots of maintenance, and we're actually working with the snowmobile clubs as well. So we've broken our project into 3 parts. It's like 3 legs of the stool. This section is what is like the western section, so to get from Keene to Brattleboro. And we're actually working with people in Brattleboro to get over the river. The idea is that someone could bike from the West River Trail in Brattleboro all the way to Keene and beyond. As far as access, snowmobiles, personally, I haven't had issue with snowmobiles. They, like you said, they're riding on snow and ice pack, so they don't damage the surface. Unfortunately, and maybe through education, ATVs do damage the surface, and I've seen it. You know, people do donuts and spin out and all that stuff. And my understanding, one of the concerns the state has, I'm not speaking for them, but one thing that they've mentioned at some summits I've been at is, hey, we're pumping a lot of money into restoration of these. What are we going to do to maintain them and preserve our investment? So maintenance is a big deal to them and to us to maintain the surface. And we're talking a crushed stone, 14 wide, slightly crowned surface, similar to West Keene, if you've been over there, or just West Swansea on the Ashwelot Trail, just south of the 101 bridge, that type of surface. Right now, as you know, the Title 27, I can't remember what it's called, you know, restricts ATVs currently. But my understanding is, you know, if you go to the state, maybe something could happen. Now, our Board of Selectmen in Swansea came to us a couple years ago and asked what we thought. We surveyed residents, you know, we did all that kind of stuff, and we came back with proposing that they do not allow it. A lot of it was safety reasons. Some people I talked to said if you put that type of vehicle on the trail, they won't use it because they feel the rail trail is the safe place they can go right now to just bike, walk their dog, you know, that type of thing. That's personal experience from people we talked to in the town of Swansea.
Do you have any firsthand knowledge of any issues, though? That was my question originally.
Personally?
Yeah, with snowmobiles and people that are cross-country skiing or anything?
So personally, and this is just personal, my experience has been snowmobiles, it seems like they have an etiquette rule, law, because every time they come up, they always slow way down, make sure, you know, everybody's out of the way, you know, that type of thing. And again, unfortunately, and maybe it just, you know, if you get more organized, that's not the case with ATVs, right? People go flying by and that type of thing. And that's just personally that's happened,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think what happens is one bad apple.
Exactly, and so maybe, you know.
Well, I
that
think a
can be
lot of it,
fixed.
You have that with snowmobiles as well, there's always, you know, those.
And again, my personal experience, so maybe that's happened to other people.
I think a lot of the comparison there is because ATVs are still against the law, so it's not necessarily law-abiding citizens riding them up the trails, paying attention. It's
Right.
So,
somebody just blowing up the
so
trails.
that's just my knowledge right now and what I understand.
Right.
But we are working on a project. I'm working with Margaret here for the town of Winchester, Catherine Lynch, the town of Hinsdale, people in Brattleboro to get the link made from Keene to Brattleboro, so someone could.
You know, we actually, the board put a warrant article on this March to be voted on to raise money. And Dean was a big backer of it, and he's involved, he's on the committee. You know, so you know Mike.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I guess my point being is, we're asking all taxpayers, not just the ones that ride bicycles or walk or hike, but all taxpayers to help out maintaining these trails.
Yep.
Why are we excluding the ones that want to do it responsible on ATVs? And I think, I've always had a problem with it because they pay the same I'm not sure the fee, because I'm not an owner of one, but I believe they pay the same fee as a snowmobile does.
Yeah, I
And a
don't.
snowmobile has the right to ride on it, but they have to pay the same money, and they have an area this big to ride on. Yeah, so I, thank you very much.
Okay, sure thing.
I'd like to have Jay's response to, on sponsoring or co-sponsoring some type of, in the next session, even bringing up as a debate, anything
Yeah.
right now to help these clubs that are organized, that are trying to do the right thing. Put it on the floor for discussion anyways.
I know it'll be on the floor for discussion. I will, because I've listened to these discussions, and the transportation, there's a House Transportation Committee and a Senate Transportation Committee. And on the House Transportation Committee, we actually have several people from Cheshire County on that committee. So your concerns, I'm glad to share that with those members, because they're going to be there in those hearings so that they can respond.
Please do so.
There are two people, though, that, you know, for more information, and maybe you probably know these folks, but Chris Gamache, who is the Rails Bureau in the Natural Cultural Resources, he's one very good resource. And another is Shelley Winters, female in the Department of Transportation. I've met because there is a study that I did propose and made it through the legislature on the development of a rail trail plan that would enable and facilitate new trail development, like what Michael is working on with his Cheshire County group. And so I just wanted to name drop, but really direct contact with these responsible people might help guide where's the possible flexibility in this.
And we can reach out to them as a board. Dean's Club can reach out. It sounds like he probably has in the past. But
Chris Gamache.
I'm asking you, not as just a board member, not representing the board, I'm asking you directly if you could bring it up on the floor also.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to bring it up on the floor. I could, I mean, what's best is to find the people who are in the committees who are more familiar with those laws and will sponsor the legislation, or at least when the legislation comes up, represent a voice for Cheshire County. I'll do my best to be there and make sure that those questions are directed. But this really, I mean, I'd love to say I want to know everything I can about ATVs. I've seen these bills, I've read them, and it's a complicated body of law because it regulates the size and the speed and who can go over which trails. There are issues of maintenance. There are issues of local control. And frankly, you have a lot of local control, but once you do that, we don't have good maintenance agreements. Like, are you going to ensure anybody who goes over that trail that you've permitted, that you, the town, have permitted to go over that trail? Are you going to agree to maintain it? That should there be an insurance and liability issue that you've assumed? And where can you possibly get that insurance if you take on that risk?
Well, Jay,
So
that's why we're trying to deal with the club directly.
Okay. I'm sorry. No, but they.
You know, how do they get away
the
with it in
department.
Claremont, Dean, riding?
Because it was purchased in different monies. Different made it was purchased.
And that's-
It's like rail, DOT's in the middle of doing an inventory of all the properties that they own, what can be on them and what can't be on them.
Can you go to the mic, please?
And, right now they control it.
Yeah, here.
I found that out. There are probably a half a dozen different federal acts that, I mean, the state of New Hampshire doesn't put any money towards rail trails. It's all federal money. Each of those federal programs is coming with a different set of restrictions. Again, these are the complications of trying to introduce broad-based legislation. It really,
Whoever's
Anyway.
talking in the back, can we
Ben,
quiet down a little?
all the water's coming in. You might want to close the windows. Oh. Just saying.
All right.
But, Mr. Marsh, I hear your question. I hear your desire for your state senator to understand that that's a question before your board, that your residents and constituents are interested in that. They're my constituents. I will take an interest in this issue and the legislation that surrounds it, but making commitments that I can push a piece of legislation. If I can't see the way for a piece of legislation to be passed, I find it not as responsible an act of mine to just drop them in. So that's why I would want to be working with the members of transportation committees in the House or Senate to assure that you got a good representative, to navigate this with the committee. You don't want bills to go in and fail, and then that be the precedent for future denials.
Well, we have to start somewhere, and you just happen to be it tonight.
Yes.
Carrie, do you have those two names?
Yep.
All right, so this board will be discussing this and possibly be sent down with Dean and the group here and maybe reaching out to the Department of Transportation and this subcommittee to see
And please copy me on those communications. You know that I've been very responsive
Yes,
in
you
following up on your communications and making sure that that you get answers to, and it may be the undesirable answer, but at least you know who's considered it and what they've considered, what their best judgment is.
Right.
I understand that this has been tried in the past, and it's been met with closed doors. So this is something that, they're taxpayers. They're paying to support the people to walk on them right now, but they're limited to an area that's the size of this room to ride, in the largest state park in the state. So both the trails need to be opened up in the park, and they need availability to the rail beds. I don't think that's too much to ask for. As you know, as a club, and maybe that's the answer, that you have to be a member of this club to be able. It would reassure that they would. Well, I don't know that if the.
It's almost impossible to police that.
Well, I didn't say you have to police it. I'm just saying maybe
Right.
that's the starting point. Yeah. Well, not right now. You're not. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of piggyback on that a little bit. Now, Dean, if I remember correctly, you said before that your ATV club was the largest one in at least Cheshire County, right? Okay, and it's one of the largest ones in the state, isn't it? Or up north is bigger, but in this region, right? And you have like 400 plus members. Yeah. So, yeah, Jay, we'll definitely be reaching out to both these people, but if you happen to pass them, you can also do some name dropping up there and mention the Mount Pisgah Sport ATV Club and the Winchester Board of Selectmen. That we'll all be talking to them pretty soon.
As I said, any communication that you have with state officials,
Yep.
drop me that note so I can be copied, and I'm following it, and
Yeah, we'll
as you
make
do
sure
that, I'm learning with you.
Yeah, we'll make sure any emails that we have Carrie send out to them that we CC you also in them.
Perfect, thank you. Good, good.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Jay?
What's the possibility of opening up new trails in the park itself? Other than the rail trail, just new trails up in Pisgah?
I just don't know. Again, I don't know. I know that the state, I can only tell you the funding side to this, that so I'm sorry.
That
Can't.
goes back to that, what, you said a 7-year plan or? 20? Oh, 7, yeah. Yeah. So, another
Yep.
18 years. You-
Yep,
Yeah, it's
Or-
like Manning Hill being on 10-year plan since 1952.
yep,
Or the Hinsdale Bridge.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yep,
Indeed.
no other questions from the board for Jay? Or? Huh? Right, yeah, I was gonna ask. Does anybody from the public happen to have any questions for the senator that are quick questions while he's here? No.
I have an online question somebody asked.
All right, come on up. If you could just state the names.
Yep. Definitely. So Denise Henley Earway wanted to know, Jay, if you sit on the education committee, and is a meeting going to come up with lasting education funding? If you could give an update on that. And has it been suspended in person because of COVID, or are the meetings still happening in Concord?
It happens that we held a hearing this week on school startup. It was a joint committee meeting of the House and Senate Education Committees. So we are capable of meeting. It was 26 legislators on Zoom with 108 viewers. That hearing's available on YouTube. All right, so the other part of the question is stability of education funding, I think. I'm really worried about education funding. We put more money to local districts this last year. I think you know that. Winchester, I believe, received over $1 million during this biennium of additional state aid. That's legislation that I sponsored, and that should have helped contain your tax rate. You haven't seen your tax rate for 2021, but in addition to the action that you've taken and the state funding, there should be a positive impact on your tax rate coming up. So now, where does that go in the future? I'm very concerned about where the state ended the fiscal year, and without the CARES Act that appropriated $1.2 billion into the state of New Hampshire prohibited it to going towards known expenses. So we aren't backfilling our deficit. And our deficit this year in the state budget that is carried forward into the second year of the state budget was $150 million. That could continue into the next fiscal year, and it's probably a good guess that it will. And what is the impact on that as the state begins to deplete its reserves this year and starts to look forward to future education funding? I am very concerned about education funding, and I think that towns will need to be very strong advocates that the state provide some property tax relief, and if it can't, that it at least directs its state aid to the neediest towns. I am on the Education Funding Commission, and that is in fact something that we're looking at, and we'll make recommendations to the next legislature by December 1st.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. And that's it from the public. So yeah, thank you very much, Jay. Thank you for coming.
Jay.
Thanks for having me, and Carrie, thanks for arranging it. Thank you.
We are all set with you. Yep, till next time. Thank you guys for coming in.
Dean, we'll talk about it here. We have next week off. We have a lot coming up the first week of August, but this is something that I personally would like to get going before the next session comes in, next legislative session comes into play. January, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's not
I'd
like it's next month,
If we,
so.
maybe you can, maybe the club could help us draft a letter to these.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll schedule one next month sometime. Right.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Middle of August or something, end of August.
Thank you, guys. All right, moving forward. Might as well get these out of the way. Tonight was,
What about the minutes?
well, I was gonna do these bids first and then move on to everything else. Tonight was the scheduled night to open the bids for the Asheville Fire Station. We received 4 of them. And everybody bid on the same scope of work, correct, Carrie? Everybody, you gave this same sheet to everybody?
Correct.
Okay.
Whether they did or not, I can't tell you that.
Yep.
It's sealed.
We'll know in a minute. The first one is from Marvin Smart. Yep. It's definitely the form, because that's what he wrote his bid on, was the form.
Should be a couple, you're looking at a couple different numbers because of the snow belting and with and without Ben.
Right, well, he had a note at the bottom too. He actually recommends just repairing a couple pieces of plywood and putting metal over the entire thing.
Okay.
That's what his recommendation is. But his pricing on what was part of the scope of work was for shingles that's already up there. He's got, with the snow belt, $19,675. Without the snow belt is $17,150. If there's any plywood that needs to be replaced, for material and labor is $75 per sheet. And then for doing a metal roof, the price is $22,950. And again, $75 per sheet for any plywood that needs to be replaced. The next one is from Fennell Roofing. And they wrote a book. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, for the scope of work for shingles, asphalt shingles, they've got $19,000 even. Yeah, and that looks like, briefly reading through it all, that looks like it's everything. And for metal is 20,000 even.
Did they have a price when it went out for snow belt, then on asphalt?
No,
No?
that is, let me look for the word snow belt here.
On the west side towards Brattleboro, they recommended it because of this, that doesn't get the sunlight.
Briefly reading through it quick, I don't see anything that says anything about a snow belt, so.
Okay.
We'll give ourselves time to review these a
Yep.
little more in depth anyway. The next one is from A.L. Johnson and Sons Roofing. So, for asphalt shingle roof, the total price is $20,013.29. And then there's a few things on here that could be extras if needed, and one of them is a snow belt for $2,790. Plywood be $70 a sheet if needed. And then if any other damages, any other repairs needed would be $75 per hour per man to fix any other damages outside the scope of this. And metal roof is $28,604.84. And there was no extras if needed on that one, so. And the last one is from 603 Roofing. Looks like they only bid on doing a asphalt roof. I don't see anything here for metal. Their total for the asphalt is $13,000.
Even?
Yep.
Hey, snow belt.
Let's see, ice and water shield. Ridge vent, ridge cap, pipe flashing, step flashing, fasteners, underlayment, drip edge starters. Nope, I don't see anything about a snow belt. But I also don't see, doesn't look like they put a bid in on the metal. So those are the 4 bids we have. Next week we're off, so let's everybody review them over the next 2 weeks. And Carrie can review them and make sure that they bid on, everything lines up with what we were looking for. And we can discuss them again in 2 weeks. Next order of business is to approve the minutes from July 15th.
Make a motion to approve those.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next, we have the agreement for service that we sign every year with the ELM Memorial Center. Everything looks to me like it's the same as what it's always been.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. I will explain real quickly for anybody watching. Every year, because they put on a warrant article, this year was for the $55,000, and the towns had an agreement with them every year that we would sign a contract with them that they will provide certain services for the town, which include the baseball and the soccer programs and the new basketball programs and stuff, just to show better stewardship of the taxpayer money that they receive through elections.
I know the soccer has started or going to start. Did they do baseball?
No, they had to cancel all the baseball. Mark Tigan sent us a update, kind of an FYI, but an invite also at the same time. They are meeting on the 24th. Right, that's what I'm trying, there's like 6 dates on this thing. Nope. They're hoping to begin construction July 27th. The intent to construct had a 14-day wait period that was mandated that will be up as of July 24th. July 23rd, they are scheduled to close in escrow. July 1st, they signed the contract. They're hoping next week to do a small groundbreaking ceremony. And they would like somebody from the select board to attend. I would have no problem going to it. I mean, I've been supporting them along with the rest of us.
When? What day?
They don't know yet.
Okay.
They just said hopefully next week. They said that they haven't been able to nail down the date because all their energies have been focused on the closings. So now that those are finally happening, they'd like to do something next week. So I'd be more than happy to go. I don't know if anybody else wants to go, but
It depends on when.
yeah.
I'll go along with you, or
Yeah.
if you can't go.
So Carrie, if you can just let Mark know that at least a couple of us will be there, and just let us know what day and time. Next, we have actually 2 permits for the sale of raffle tickets, both for the Winchester Sports Boosters. The first one is for a cow plop on August 16th, $1,000 cash.
It's supposed to be
At
the
the,
15th.
it's going to be at the ELMM Center, front lawn. And then the second one is for August 1st and 8th at the Winchester Dirt Bike Park for 50/50 raffles.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ben, I'm sorry, that date's supposed to be the 15th, not the 16th, for the cow pop.
the 15th, 1/5.
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Next, we have a tax levy, or a tax warrant for $204.72 for timber tax, map 4, lots 31 and 32. Is the actual address this Bolton Road address? Yeah, so it's 299 Bolton Road.
It's on Bolton Road. There is no address because it's a lot.
Okay, it was on Bolton Road.
It's on Bolton.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. There are 2 pages to sign. Next, we have an application for a permit for fireworks for August 15th. They put 8:30 to 10. We usually give people till 11. This is for property at 280 Forest Lake Road.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. And that was signed off on by the police chief and the fire chief. We have here paperwork from Tata and Howard. It's an amendment that they've requested on the contract for the water systems improvements, and this is just, what was this adding again, Carrie?
Adding the engineer servicing, so they're on site during the project.
Right, okay.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. It only has room for 1 signature.
You guys feel free to bring an air conditioner with you next week. I won't point. I won't be here next week. No?
None of us will be here next week.
Oh, that's true.
So they'll have to bring them in 2 weeks. And next we have a letter here on the church steeple. This is from Scully Architects, and they have reviewed 2 of the contracts, their proposals, and they are recommending that the town proceed with Robert Morgan Company. So I will entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. And it doesn't look like there's anything here to sign for that, Carrie?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Jack, explain why that's not sealed bids.
Well, this wasn't sealed bid
Because we hired a general contractor, and they're
Right.
the ones that put it out to bid.
right. The general contractor put it out to bid, and the general contractor is recommending Robert Morgan to us after their bid process.
Is this town policy anything above 10,000?
I think it's 10,000 has to go out
That
to
has to
sealed
go out
bid.
sealed bids, but this was put out by a general contractor.
Then, in the financial folder, we only have one thing. Payment out of the Water Capital Reserve Fund to Lawrence Excavating for $30,000.
Make a motion to approve that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. That's it in there. Somewhere in all this, I lost, there it is, there's my agenda.
Lindsay.
Yep. I knew there was one thing I was missing. We have scheduled a monthly school update.
That's okay. It was a busy day for you, and I forgot that you didn't have a meeting next week rather. So I'll just provide a brief update from the school. As you all know, the governor released a very loose framework for return to school and some guidelines for COVID-19 and how to handle that. We have a reopening committee. Our reopening committee has been meeting. They continue to meet. We have a survey out to our parents and to all of the various stakeholders that would be an important part of bringing school back. Really asking questions like, you know, what is your intent of returning? How comfortable are you with it? You know, how comfortable you are with masks? Should our staff be wearing masks? Should our kiddos be wearing masks? Will you be coming back full-time, part-time? How accessible is remote learning? So that's out now. I will be joining the reopening committee tomorrow as we continue to evaluate the best possible plan. I think most of us know that at this point, the plan looks very hybrid. There's multiple ways that people are, or that students are going to be coming back to school, and there are lots of different parental involvement in that. Everything from busing to being in classrooms. We're obviously struggling overall with ensuring the safe amount of distance. Following the budget cuts, all of our classroom sizes have become larger, and desks are actually not a thing that students use in classrooms any longer, and we don't have a lot of desks in our classrooms. We use a lot of tables. So we're working through all of those bits and pieces along with the bus company. Hopefully not your next week, but your meeting following that on August 5th, the school board will be meeting on August 7th, and I anticipate that by that meeting we'll probably have something a little more formal to be brought to the board, so I won't necessarily have an update on August 5th for you. As you know, the town asked the school if we could make some voting accommodations, so the school board did vote to shift around our calendar a little bit to allow town voting to happen for both the primary and for the November elections. We had a staff development, a professional development day that we're going to move into November, and the September date we're gonna do some remote learning opportunity, and frankly it might end up being that kind of schedule anyway. So we did vote to make that accommodation. We're happy to be able to allow the access to the school whenever it's possible. At our last board meeting, we did have a resignation of one of our members. Val Cole did submit her resignation to us. As we had announced a couple of times previously, she had undergone some surgery. It was going very well, but she's just not feeling like she can be attending in a safe and effective manner. And so the school board has put out the call for a letter of interest. If you're interested in coming in, and it will be an interview process with the current board, you should submit a letter to the SAU. You can submit it to Marie Braley, that's M. Braley, BRALEY, at Winchester, New Hampshire School District, WNHSD.org. Also found on the SAU website or the school website. Right now, the board hasn't placed a time frame, but at our last meeting did discuss it would be really nice to have somebody kind of in place by September as we come into one of the busiest times for the boards, as you know. So I anticipate at our August 7th, we'll probably set forward a very specific plan, pick a deadline, and then hopefully at our August 20th meeting, have a little more time to potentially place somebody. As we head into budget, our administration is already meeting. They've amped up their meetings weekly, Wednesdays, to begin the budget discussion. We're trying to develop the best possible schedule so that stakeholders and the budget committee can be present for the conversations that we're having at the school board, and hopefully getting that information out directly at that time versus trying to repeat and go back and explain the budget again during budget season. And so hopefully with everybody involved at that level, there'll be some buy-in and some perhaps more fluid handling during the budget meetings themselves. I just wanted to put in a quick plug for the Winchester Sports Boosters. As you approved, they're doing a number of things the weekend of August 15th and 16th at the Elm, and including a softball tournament and the cow plop and a yard sale. As a parent and as a community member, I'm really excited to see the group coming together and putting together some sports for our students. I think we can all agree that, you know, it's just one more thing in the list of cuts that really impact our students and their ability to grow and flourish in the greater community. As a board member, we're anxiously awaiting all of the updated information from the boosters, and hopefully we'll see them at our next meeting in case there's anything additional that they need from us. And that is all I had from my list. Were there any questions for the board? Or that I can bring back to the board is a much better statement.
No, I think right now the biggest question on everybody's mind is how's school gonna start back up, and
Yeah,
so, I mean,
big question.
you
for us.
covered that. No, there is no answer yet.
And I would just say our
There's a lot of
schedule-
schools around the state that are in the same position.
A lot of schools. I mean,
They don't know what they're doing yet. And
everything from the funding, we are not alone as a community when education funding is hit. We're not the only district that feels it. That is a feeling across the state in small communities such as ours, and that is definitely impacting. And I hope to have a much better update. Just one more thing, I'm sorry, we do have a slight schedule change. You heard me mention that we're gonna have a board meeting on Friday, August 7th. Not a usual day for us, but we're dealing with some vacations and we wanted to get 2 meetings in. So you're welcome to join us on the 7th or the 20th, school gym.
all right, thank you. All right, that time it's everything on the agenda, so I would like to, I'm gonna make a motion to purchase 8 tablets or laptops of such.
Second.
Of up to, what did I say last week, 600?
500.
500?
Is this a different motion, or are you making a motion to revisit your original?
No, it's a new motion. It's a new motion. Because, I mean, Carrie and Margaret were looking online. I've been doing some searching online. These things there are some out there available. They're a little scarce. So I would actually like to change it to 600 instead of 500, just so we know we can find 8 of them. So up to 600 for 8. And again, this is all being reimbursed to us. It's not going to cost us anything. So, any other discussion on that? No other questions, Chan? No. No? Okay.
Something,
Yep.
something that I had said previously, that I had said that I wouldn't necessarily need to use the equipment because I have my own personal equipment. However, I forgot about the possibility with right to know law, that should something come up and I use my own personal equipment, that my personal equipment could possibly be seized. So therefore, yes, I would then use
Yep.
the equipment.
Yep. That's definitely a very good point, too. All right. That being said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed?
No,
Still no.
do you have an update from the Conservation Committee?
Yes and no. I didn't make it to the meeting because I had something come up Thursday night.
But you got some information.
But I did get some information, but they're still not 100% sure on what's going on out there.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Chan. He was out there, spent most of the day out there the other day, York raking and
Yeah.
dressing it up. It looks good.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely looks really nice out there now.
Yeah. I noticed some residents are starting to use it,
Yep.
so.
Yep. Oh, actually, I know Gloria, you had something, but he just mentioned that, so I didn't want to lose my thought. I've been told that, I heard that the police have had to kick people out of there, like at night. They're out there having little fires and barbecuing at night, which, I mean, I'm not against people using it to barbecue, but after dark, it does get a little sketchy having people having fires out there. So I don't know if we need to
Well, I
ask
don't
conservation
think
to set a time frame.
I don't think there is a time frame on that park. We'd have to look in some old records, but I don't believe there is.
Yeah. I don't believe there is. I talked to John Hahn and he said he wasn't aware of anything.
There's no signage
But,
out there.
the police department was really nervous about people out there after, I mean, these were like 11 o'clock midnight out there.
The worst of it is that had the fire on the ground.
Wow.
It wasn't in the pit.
Oh,
Had it on the ground.
yeah. So maybe we should reach out to